Korvax Empire had ruled the Outer Rim for 3,000 years. Their warriors were tall, covered in dark green scales, and feared across 17 star systems. No one had ever defeated them in battle. Their ships were massive, their weapons were powerful, and their soldiers knew no fear. When High Commander Zethrael looked at the galaxy, he saw only things waiting to be conquered. So when a small problem appeared near a tiny blue planet called Earth, Zethrael did not worry at all. The problem was simple. The Korvax wanted to control some mining areas in a region called the Kepler Expanse. Another species, the Valons, also wanted those areas. The Valons had built some defensive stations near the mining zones, and those stations happened to be close to Earth's territory. Zethrael knew almost nothing about humans. They had only learned to travel faster than light about 40 years ago. They had only 3 colony worlds. They were not members of the Galactic Council. They had a tiny military with fewer than 200 ships. By Korvax standards, they were nothing. They were insects. They were not worth thinking about. This was the first mistake. On a quiet day in the Earth calendar, month of March, a human cargo ship called the Wandering Star was passing through the disputed zone. The ship was carrying medical supplies to a human colony. It was not a military vessel. It had no weapons that could threaten anyone. There were 17 people on board, including 6 children who were traveling with their families to start new lives on a distant world. The captain of the Wandering Star was a woman named Claire Morrison. She was 43 years old. She had served in Earth's military for 15 years before retiring to become a freight captain. She had a husband named Peter waiting for her back on Earth. She had a small house with a garden. She had a life she loved. When the Korvax warship appeared on her sensors, Claire felt her stomach tighten. She had heard stories about the Korvax. Everyone had. But she was in neutral space, flying a civilian ship, doing nothing wrong. Surely they would leave her alone. She was wrong. The Korvax warship fired without warning. The first shot hit the Wandering Star's engines, crippling the ship instantly. Claire grabbed her communication controls and sent a message asking what was happening, asking why they were attacking, begging them to stop. There were children on board. There were innocent people. The Korvax did not respond. They fired again. Claire Morrison made a decision in that moment. She could not save everyone. The ship was dying around her. But she could save someone. She sealed the bridge and began routing emergency power to the escape pods. She grabbed Danny Ortega, her young pilot, and Lisa Park, her engineer. She pushed them toward the nearest pod. "Get in," she ordered. "Captain, the others," Danny said. His face was pale. He was only 24 years old. There's no time. "Get in the pod." "That's an order." They climbed into the pod. Claire climbed in after them. Behind them, through the small window, they could see the Wandering Star breaking apart. They could see the other sections of the ship, the sections where the families had been, going dark. 14 people died that day. 6 of them were children. The escape pod drifted through space for 3 days. They had limited air, limited water, limited hope. Danny kept checking the communication equipment, but no one was answering. Lisa worked on keeping the life support running. Claire sat in silence, thinking about the people she had failed to save. On the 3rd day, a human patrol vessel found them. The soldiers who brought them aboard looked at their hollow faces and torn uniforms and knew something terrible had happened. Claire was brought to Earth Command for questioning. She sat in a clean white room and told her story to a group of admirals. She told them about the attack, about the silence from the Korvax ship, about the children who had died. She told them about the final message she had sent before escaping. When she finished, Admiral George Harmon leaned forward. He was an older man with gray hair and a face that looked like it had seen too much. "Captain Morrison," he said, "would you be willing to tell this story to the human assembly?" Claire looked at him. "Will it matter? Will anyone do anything?" "I promise you," Admiral Harmon said. "Something will be done," she agreed. 3 days later, Claire Morrison stood before the human assembly, the governing body that represented all of humanity. She told her story again. She showed them the sensor recordings from her ship. She showed them images of the Wandering Star being destroyed. She read the names of the 14 people who had died. When she finished, there was silence in the Great Hall. Then the prime speaker stood up. "I call for a vote," he said. "The question before us is simple. The Korvax Empire has attacked our people without warning or cause. They have killed our citizens, including children. What shall be our response?" The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted the same way. Humanity was going to war. When High Commander Zethral received the news, he laughed. His advisors laughed with him. The humans were declaring war. The tiny species with their tiny fleet and their tiny empire. This was a joke. This would be over in weeks. Zethral ordered a battle group of 50 ships to crush the human military. He expected them to return victorious within a month. He went back to planning his campaign against the Velans. He did not know that he had made the worst mistake in the history of his species. On Earth, Peter Morrison watched the news about the war declaration. He was a professor of military history at a university. He had spent his whole life studying how humans fought wars. He knew things that the Korvax could not imagine. When Earth Command asked for civilian advisors, he volunteered immediately. "I want to help," he told the recruitment officer. "The Korvax killed my wife's crew. They almost killed her." "Your wife survived, sir. Captain Morrison is alive." Peter closed his eyes for a moment. He had not known. In the chaos of the past few days, no one had told him. "She's alive?" "Yes, sir. She's at Earth Command right now." Peter Morrison went to find his wife. He held her for a long time without saying anything. Then he looked at her and made a promise. "They're going to pay for what they did," he said. "I'm going to make sure of it." Claire nodded. She had survived the worst day of her life. She had watched innocent people die. And now she was going to watch humanity show the galaxy what happened when you hurt their people. The Korvax had no idea what was coming. The Korvax intelligence service had a file on humanity. It was not a very good file. No one had thought humans were important enough to study carefully. The file said that humans were weak creatures who needed specific conditions to survive. They could not breathe in most atmospheres. They could not handle extreme temperatures. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They lived short lives compared to most species in the galaxy. The file said nothing about human history. This was a very big mistake. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after the war began. A Korvax forward base in the Theta Carini system stopped responding to communications. High Commander Zethral sent a patrol ship to investigate. What the patrol found made no sense. The base was gone. Not damaged. Not captured. Gone. Every building had been turned to rubble. Every ship had been ripped apart. There were no survivors. There were no enemy bodies. There was nothing but destruction. Zethral assumed the Velans had attacked while his attention was elsewhere. He was wrong. He sent a battle group of 40 ships to find and punish whoever had done this. The battle group jumped into the target system. They sent one message confirming arrival. Then they went silent. 2 days later, 3 ships limped back to Korvax space. Only 3. Out of 40. The survivors could barely explain what had happened. The enemy had appeared from nowhere. Their weapons had been unlike anything the Korvax had ever seen. Their tactics had been impossible to predict. "They did not fight like warriors," one survivor said. His voice was shaking. "They fought like ghosts. They fought like demons." Zethral was disturbed, but not worried.
Not yet.
He gathered 300 ships, the largest fleet the Korvax had sent into battle in over a century. He sent them to find and destroy the human military. 60 ships came back. Now, Zethral was worried. He studied the sensor data his scouts had collected. The human ships were smaller than Korvax vessels. They were faster, but they should have been weaker. They were not. Their weapons seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. Their pilots seemed to know what the Korvax were going to do before they did it. None of this made sense to Zethral. The Korvax fought with honor. They faced their enemies directly. They followed the ancient rules of warfare that all civilized species followed. The humans followed no rules at all. Peter Morrison had spent his first week at Earth Command studying Korvax battle tactics. He read every report, watched every recording, analyzed every piece of data he could find. Then he went to the admirals with a plan. Korvax expect us to fight the way they do, he told them. They expect big fleet battles. Ship against ship. Strength against strength. That's how wars are fought, one admiral said. That's how they fight wars, Peter replied. But we're humans. We don't have to fight like that. We can't fight like that. They have more ships, more soldiers, more everything. If we try to match them, we lose. Then what do you suggest? Peter smiled. It was not a nice smile. We make them bleed. We hit their supply lines. We attack their fuel depots. We destroy their repair stations. We never fight them where they're strong. We only fight them where they're weak. We make every day of this war cost them more than they can afford. The admirals were not sure about this plan. It did not sound like honorable warfare. It sounded like something else. Professor Morrison, Admiral Harmon, said, "What you're describing sounds like terrorism." "No," Peter said. "What I'm describing is how humans have always fought when we were outnumbered. We're very good at it. We've had a lot of practice." The admirals approved the plan. Danny Ortega had recovered from his ordeal in the escape pod. He had requested immediate transfer to a combat unit. His commanding officer had tried to talk him out of it. "You've been through a trauma," the officer said. "You should take time to recover." "I'll recover after the war," Danny replied. "Right now, I want to fight." He was assigned to a squadron of fast attack ships. Their job was to hit Korvax targets and disappear before the enemy could respond. Danny was good at this job. He was very good. His hands were steady on the controls. His mind was clear and cold. He thought about the children on the Wandering Star every time he fired his weapons. Lisa Park had also volunteered for the war effort, but not as a fighter. She was an engineer, and engineers won wars just as much as soldiers did. She joined a team designing new weapons and new ships. "The Korvax have better armor than us," she told her team on the first day. "They have bigger guns. They have more experience. So we need to be smarter. We need to build things they've never seen before." Our team created weapons that could slip through Korvax shields. They designed ships that could change direction faster than Korvax sensors could track. They invented communication systems that the Korvax could not intercept every week. The human military became a little more dangerous. Claire Morrison did not fight in the war. She had done her part. Instead, she became a symbol. She traveled to human colonies and military bases, telling her story, reminding people why they were fighting. She looked into the faces of young soldiers and saw the same determination she felt. "We didn't start this war," she told them, "but we're going to finish it." 6 months after the war began, the Korvax Empire had lost 800 ships. The humans had lost 32. Zethro's superiors were asking difficult questions. How could this happen? How could such a weak species cause such damage? Zethro did not have good answers. He tried different tactics. He sent massive fleets to overwhelm human positions with numbers. The humans simply retreated, then attacked from a different direction. He fortified his bases. The humans found ways around the fortifications. He tried to predict what they would do next. He was always wrong. The Korvax fought wars like a game with rules. The humans fought wars like survival. There was a difference. A Korvax commander named Brentel had opposed the war from the beginning. He had tried to warn Zethral that attacking the human ship was a mistake. No one had listened to him then. They were listening now. "We cannot win this war," Brentel told the Korvax Military Council. "The humans do not fight for territory or resources. They fight because we hurt them. They will not stop until they have hurt us back. Every ship we lose makes them stronger. Every battle we fight drains our strength while they grow more confident. What do you suggest?" Zethral asked. His voice was tired. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. "I suggest we find a way to end this war before there is nothing left of our empire to save." Zethral did not want to admit defeat, but he was beginning to understand something important. The Korvax had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. They had made other species afraid of them now, for the first time. The Korvax were afraid of someone else. The Galactic Council had existed for 20,000 years. It was made up of representatives from 417 different species who had agreed to work together for peace and trade. The council made rules that everyone followed. It solved problems that individual species could not solve alone. It kept the galaxy stable. The council had not paid much attention to humans before the war. Humans were new to space travel. They were not members of the council yet. Their application for observer status had been sitting in a bureaucratic pile for 5 years. No one had thought there was any rush. Now everyone was paying attention. Council. President Talveen was a member of the Scythian species. The Scythians were ancient and wise. They had helped found the council thousands of years ago. Talveen had seen many wars during his long life. He had never seen anything like this. Every week, new reports came in from Korvax space. Another base destroyed. Another fleet defeated. Another impossible victory for the humans? The numbers did not make sense. The Korvax had started the war with over 12,000 ships. The humans had started with fewer than 200. By all logic, the war should have been over in weeks. Instead, the humans were winning. Talveen called an emergency session of the council. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the Great Chamber. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and wide. Some had scales, some had fur, some had neither. They spoke different languages and came from different worlds. But they all shared the same emotion today. They were afraid. Ambassador Errol of the Velen Confederacy spoke first. The Velans had been fighting the Korvax for centuries over various disputes. They knew Korvax military power better than anyone. The Korvax are being destroyed, Errol said. This should be good news for us. They have been our enemies for a long time. But I am not celebrating. I am worried. Why? Asked a delegate from a species called the Morphians, because the humans are doing what we never could, Errol explained. They are doing it with a fraction of the resources. They are doing it in months instead of centuries. If they can do this to the Korvax, what could they do to us? A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates were thinking the same thing. Talveen raised a hand for silence. We have invited a representative from Earth to speak with us today. I believe we should hear what he has to say. Admiral George Harmon walked into the chamber. He was the only human in a room full of aliens. He did not look nervous. He looked calm. He looked like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Thank you for having me, he said. His voice was steady. I understand that many of you are concerned about the war. Let me tell you why this war is happening. He pressed a button, and an image appeared on the great screen behind him. It was a picture of the wandering star taken before the attack. This was a cargo ship, Harmon said. It was carrying medical supplies. There were 17 people on board. 6 of them were children. He pressed another button. The image changed to show the wandering star being destroyed. The Korvax attacked this ship without warning, without reason, without mercy. 14 people died. 6 of them were children. The chamber was silent. We did not start this war, Harmon continued. We did not want this war. But when someone attacks our people, when someone kills our children, we do not forget. We do not forgive. We fight back. That is who we are, Ambassador Errol spoke up. The Korvax started this, yes. But your response has been ... extreme. You have killed thousands of Korvax soldiers. They killed our children. But surely there must be limits. Surely there must be a point where revenge becomes too much. Harmon looked at the ambassador for a long moment. When someone killed your children, what limits did you set on your response? Errol had no answer. The Velens had fought many wars against the Korvax. They had never shown much mercy either. The council debated for 3 days. Some members wanted to step in and force both sides to stop fighting. Others argued that the Korvax had brought this on themselves. A few quietly admitted that they were terrified of what humans might do if the council tried to interfere in the end. The council made a decision. They would not try to stop the war. They would not take sides. But they would issue a warning to every species in the galaxy. The document was called Advisory. Regarding human military engagement, it was the first official document the council had ever issued about humans. The main message was simple. Do not fight the humans. The document explained that human military capabilities were far beyond what anyone had expected. It described human tactics and strategies. It warned that humans seemed to have an unusual ability to adapt to any situation. It advised all species to pursue diplomatic solutions to any disagreements with humanity. Claire Morrison read the advisory from her quarters at Earth Command. She had become an advisor herself now, helping coordinate relations between Earth and the various alien governments that were reaching out to humanity for the first time. They're afraid of us, she said to Peter. He nodded. They should be. Is that a good thing? Peter thought about this. It's better than being ignored. It's better than being seen as prey. Claire was not sure she agreed. She had never wanted anyone to be afraid of her. She had just wanted to live a quiet life, flying her ship, carrying cargo, coming home to her husband. The Korbaks had taken that future away from her. But was this future better? Lisa Park had a different view. She had been promoted to lead engineer on a project to build a new class of warship. She spent her days designing and testing, pushing the limits of what human technology could do. Fear isn't what we want, she told Claire during a visit. Respect is what we want. Right now, they're afraid because they don't understand us. Once they understand us, they'll see that we're not monsters. We're just people who refuse to be victims. Danny Ortega did not think about fear or respect. He thought about the mission. He had been promoted to squadron leader. His unit had destroyed more Korbaks targets than any other in the fleet. He was good at his job. He was too good. His commanding officer called him in for a meeting. You need to take a break, the officer said. I'm fine. No, you're not. I've seen your combat recordings. You take unnecessary risks. You push yourself too hard. You're going to get killed. Danny looked at his commander. Those children on the Wandering Star didn't get a break. They didn't get a chance to take time off. Why should I? Because you're still alive. And we need you to stay alive. The war won't last forever. When it ends, we're going to need people like you to help build the peace. Danny did not believe the war would ever end, but he agreed to take some time off. He went back to Earth for the first time since the war began. He visited his parents. He walked along the beach near his childhood home. He tried to remember what peace felt like. He could not remember. Meanwhile, on the Korbaks' homeworld, the Emperor himself was demanding answers. The war was a disaster. The Empire was bleeding ships and soldiers. Something had to change. Brentel, the diplomat who had opposed the war from the beginning, was finally given the authority he needed. He was going to Earth. He was going to negotiate peace. The question was, what would the humans demand in return? The Korbaks diplomat Brentel arrived on Earth with a small delegation. He had been given full authority to negotiate peace on any terms the humans would accept. The Emperor had been clear. End this war, no matter the cost. Brentel had studied humans as much as he could before coming. He had read their history, their literature, their philosophy. What he found disturbed him deeply. These creatures had spent their entire existence fighting each other. Every generation of human history was marked by war, conflict, and violence. They had invented hundreds of ways to kill each other. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, and yet they had also created beautiful things: art, music, stories. They built great cities and explored the depths of their oceans and sent themselves into space. They were capable of both terrible destruction and wonderful creation. Brentel did not know what to expect from these strange beings. Admiral Harmon met him at the negotiating table. Beside him sat Peter Morrison, Claire Morrison, and several other human advisors. They did not look angry. They did not look vengeful. They looked tired. Thank you for coming, Harmon said. We know this was not an easy decision for your government. We underestimated you. We saw a young species with limited technology and assumed you would be easy prey. We were wrong. Yes, you were. What do you want from us? Territory. Resources? Reparations? Harmon leaned back in his chair. We want you to remember. We want every species in this galaxy to remember what happens when you attack humanity without cause. We want peace. But we will never accept being victims. The negotiations lasted 2 weeks. In the end, the Korvax agreed to give 3 star systems to human control. They agreed to pay compensation to the families of everyone who died on the wandering star. They agreed to formally support humanity's application to join the Galactic Council. The Treaty of New Geneva was signed on a summer day. Claire Morrison was there to watch. She thought about the 17 people who had been on her ship. 14 of them had died, but their deaths had changed the course of history. She hoped they would have been proud. The Galactic Council accepted humanity's membership application within a week. For the first time, humans had a voice in galactic politics. For the first time, they were truly part of the larger community of intelligent species. But the Council's advisory about human military engagement remained in effect. In fact, it was expanded and updated regularly as new information became available. 10 years passed. Humanity grew and changed during those 10 years. Human merchants established trade routes across the galaxy. Human engineers helped build infrastructure on developing worlds. Human diplomats worked to resolve conflicts that had lasted for centuries. Slowly, other species began to see humans differently. They were still afraid of human military power, but they also came to respect human creativity, human determination, human energy. Humans worked harder than most species. They solved problems that others had given up on. They never stopped trying to improve things. But not everyone learned the lesson of the Korvax War. The Kreth Collective was a hive mind species. They shared one consciousness spread across trillions of individual bodies. Each body was a soldier, willing to die without hesitation for the collective. They had conquered a dozen worlds through sheer numbers. When they decided to expand into a region of space that included 2 human colony worlds, they calculated the odds and decided that humans would not risk a war against such overwhelming forces. They were wrong. Danny Ortega was a commander now. He had spent 10 years fighting small actions, training new pilots, and developing new tactics. When word came that the Kreth were threatening human colonies, he volunteered immediately. His fleet was sent to defend a colony world called Haven. The colony had 500,000 people. Most of them were farmers and miners, ordinary people trying to build new lives. They did not deserve to become slaves of the Kreth Collective. Danny's fleet arrived at Haven to find a Kreth armada waiting for them. His tactical officer ran the numbers. Commander, they outnumber us 600 to 1. Danny looked at the enemy fleet on his screen. 600 to 1. Those were bad odds by any measure. A sensible commander would retreat and wait for reinforcements. Danny was not a sensible commander. All ships prepare to attack. His officer stared at him. Sir, those numbers are impossible. The numbers are just numbers. They don't know how to fight us. They've never faced humans before. They think they know what we'll do. They expect us to run or surrender. We're not going to do either. He opened a channel to his entire fleet. Listen to me. The Kreth are a hive mind. They share one consciousness. They coordinate perfectly. They respond to threats in predictable ways. That's their strength. It's also their weakness. They can't handle chaos. They can't handle the unexpected. So we're going to give them chaos. We're going to do things that make no sense. We're going to attack when we should retreat. We're going to retreat when we should attack. We're going to make them doubt everything they think they know. He paused. Some of us might not survive this. I won't lie to you about that. But if we run, those people on Haven lose everything. Their homes, their families, their freedom. I'm not willing to let that happen. Are you? The response came back from every ship in his fleet. They were ready. They were willing. They were human. Danny smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator. All ships, engage. What followed was 3 months of the strangest warfare the galaxy had ever seen. Danny's fleet attacked random targets with no apparent pattern. They retreated when they had the advantage. They advanced when retreat seemed logical. They sent false signals and decoy ships. They made the Kreth question every piece of information they received. The Kreth collective mind tried to adapt. It analyzed human tactics, searching for patterns. It ran probability calculations and strategic simulations. It could not find any logic in what the humans were doing. This drove the collective insane. Coordination began to break down. Ships collided with each other because they received contradictory orders. Attack groups fired on their own positions because they could not tell friend from enemy. The perfect unity that was the Kreth's greatest strength became their greatest weakness. Within 3 months, the Kreth had lost 40% of their invasion force. Not because Danny's fleet destroyed them directly, but because their own collective mind could not function when faced with pure chaos. The Kreth withdrew. Lisa Park watched the reports from Haven with satisfaction. She had helped design the ships Danny commanded. She had built them to be fast, flexible, unpredictable, just like humans themselves. "They still don't understand us," she said to Claire Morrison during a call. "They think we're dangerous because of our weapons." "That's not it." "Then what is it?" Lisa thought for a moment. "We're dangerous because we never give up. We adapt. We learn. Every time someone attacks us, we come back stronger. They can copy our weapons and study our tactics. But they can't copy what makes us human." Claire nodded slowly. She understood what Lisa meant. The Korbaks had learned. The Kreth had learned. Sooner or later, the whole galaxy would learn. Do not involve humans in your battles. The Galactic Council updated its advisory again. New warnings were added about human psychological warfare, human adaptability, human refusal to accept defeat. The document grew longer every year, but somewhere in the galaxy, there was always another species that thought they knew better. There was always someone who looked at the small, fragile humans and saw easy prey. They were always wrong. 25 years had passed since the attack on the wandering star. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Humans were everywhere now, on hundreds of worlds, working alongside dozens of different species. They had become traders and teachers, engineers and explorers. They had helped build things that would last for centuries, but the galaxy still remembered what humans could do when they were angry. The Galactic Council's advisory regarding human military engagement had grown into a massive document. It was over 300 pages long. It contained detailed analysis of human tactics, human psychology, human history. It explained why humans fought the way they did. It warned other species about the dangers of provoking humanity. Most species took the advisory seriously. After the Korbaks, after the Kreth, after a dozen smaller conflicts where humans had demonstrated their military capabilities, no one wanted to be the next example. The Council convened a special session to discuss what they called the human question. The question was simple but had no easy answer. How should the galaxy deal with a species that could not be intimidated, could not be conquered, and could not be ignored? The Council president who would lead this discussion was a human named Marcus Chen. He was the first human to hold the position, elected 5 years earlier after a long career in diplomacy. His grandfather had been one of the first human ambassadors to the Galactic Council. His mother had served as an admiral during the Kreth conflict. He carried the weight of human history on his shoulders. Marcus stood at the podium and looked out at the hundreds of delegates gathered in the Great Chamber. Some of them had been afraid of humans for their entire lives. Some had learned to work alongside humans and consider them friends. Some were still not sure what to think. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. "We are here to discuss humanity's role in the galaxy. But before we talk about the future, I want to acknowledge the past." He gestured toward the great screen behind him. An image appeared showing the Galactic Council's advisory about human military engagement. This document exists because the galaxy is afraid of us. I understand that fear. Over the past 25 years, humanity has proven itself capable of terrible violence. We have destroyed fleets. We have humbled empires. We have made powerful species beg for peace. Paused, letting his words sink in. But I want to remind everyone here of something else. In those same 25 years, humanity has been involved in exactly 0 offensive wars. We have never attacked another species without being attacked first. We have honored every treaty we have signed. We have contributed more to disaster relief than any other species in the Council. He pressed a button, and new images appeared. Humans helping to rebuild cities destroyed by natural disasters. Human doctors treating patients on distant worlds. Human engineers building power plants and water systems for developing colonies. Human teachers working in schools across the galaxy. The galaxy is afraid of what we can do, Marcus continued, but perhaps it should pay more attention to what we choose to do. We choose peace. We choose cooperation. We choose to be partners, not enemies. Ambassador Eril of the Velen Confederacy stood up. He was old now, the same Earl who had questioned Admiral Harmon 25 years ago. His scales had turned gray with age. President Chen Eril said, "Your words are welcome, but actions speak louder than words. The advisory exists because of what humans have done in battle. How can we ignore that?" "I'm not asking you to ignore it," Marcus replied. "I'm asking you to understand it. Humans fight because we refuse to be victims. We fight because we protect our own. We fight because giving up is not in our nature. But fighting is not all we are. It never has been." He looked around the chamber again. "I would like to propose something. I move that this advisory be updated. Not removed, but changed. Right now, it only tells species what humans can do in war. I propose we add a new section describing what humans can do in peace. Let the galaxy see all of who we are, not just the part that frightens them." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Many delegates spoke in favor of the proposal. Some spoke against it, arguing that the fear the advisory created was the only thing keeping certain aggressive species in check. Some wanted to remove the advisory entirely. Some wanted to strengthen it. In the end, the Council voted to accept Marcus's proposal. The advisory would be expanded to include information about human contributions to peace and development. Alongside information about human military capabilities, it was a small change. But it represented something larger. For the first time, the galaxy was beginning to see humans as more than just dangerous warriors. They were beginning to see humans as partners. As friends? As equals, Claire Morrison watched the vote from the visitors' gallery. She was 71 years old now. Her hair had turned white. Her hands were not as steady as they used to be. But her eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still clear. Beside her sat Peter Danny and Lisa. The 4 of them had remained friends through all the years, bound together by what they had survived and what they had helped to build. "We did it," Danny said quietly. He had retired from the military 10 years ago. He spent his time now teaching young officers and writing books about military history. "We did something," Lisa corrected. She still worked as an engineer, though she had moved from weapons design to building habitats for human colonies. "There's still work to do," Peter nodded. He was 80 years old and still teaching, still studying, still thinking about what made humans who they were. "There always is." Claire said nothing for a long moment. She was thinking about the wandering star, about the 17 people who had been on board that day, about the 14 who had died. She carried their names in her heart, always. She would never forget them. "Do you think they would be proud?" she finally asked. "The people who died. Do you think they would be proud of what we've become?" Peter took her hand. "I think they would be amazed. I think they would look at what humanity has accomplished, and they would hardly believe it. A species that nearly destroyed itself, now helping to lead the galaxy toward peace." "We're not there yet," Danny said. "We're not at peace yet. There are still species out there who look at us and see prey. There are still dangers we haven't faced. But we're closer than we've ever been," Lisa said. "And we got here by being ourselves. By never giving up. By refusing to be victims. By fighting when we had to and building when we could." Claire nodded slowly. She looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, new generations of humans were being born on 100 different worlds. They would grow up in a galaxy that respected them and valued them. They would grow up knowing that their ancestors had faced Impossible odds in one. They would grow up free. A young aide approached them. Captain Morrison. There's a delegation from the Scythian homeworld requesting a meeting. They want to hear your story directly. They say you're a legend among their people. Claire smiled. She was not sure she deserved to be called a legend. She was just a cargo captain who had survived a terrible day. Everything that came after was simply her refusing to stop, refusing to give up, refusing to let the tragedy define her. But that, she supposed, was what made humans who they were. Not their weapons or their tactics or their technology. Their refusal to accept defeat. Their determination to keep going no matter what. She stood up. Her joints aching with age, but her spirits still strong. Tell them I'll be right there. She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at her friends. This isn't the end, you know. This is just another beginning. Peter smiled at her. It always is with humans. Outside, the stars burned bright and eternal. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and dangers. But somewhere among those stars, humanity had found its place. Not as conquerors, not as victims, as builders, as dreamers, as a species that would not stop until they had made the universe a little better than they found it. The Galactic Council's advisory still existed. It still warned other species about the dangers of fighting humans, but now it also told a different story. A story of hope. A story of partnership. A story of a species that had learned to channel its fierce nature into something greater. Do not involve humans in your battles, the advisory said. But if you need allies, if you need friends, if you need someone who will never abandon you no matter how dark things become, consider involving humans in your future. They might just surprise you.